Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. On this episode, hear a recap of a meeting we attended at Rosen's in Indiana this past week. We highlight how drone innovation and technology is utilized in agriculture, especially when it comes to spraying herbicides and fungicides. We talk about abiotic stress on crops and what can be done to alleviate those stressors. Dylan and Ben share our West Point, Iowa test plot plans this year, as well as new corn hybrids that will be available in 2027.
Hi, this is Joe Merschman. Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. Today we have our regulars. We got Ben, Dylan, and Lynn. And I think, Ben, you're going to start off this one?
Yeah, we had a meeting over in Indianapolis on Tuesday, and I just kind of wanted to highlight some of the things that was gone over in this meeting. So this meeting was put on by Rosen's. They are one of our main suppliers for our seed treatments that we use. And this meeting wasn't necessarily directly involved in seed treatment, but it had a lot to do with a lot of their other products that they provide to the industry. And a lot of people don't know that they are semi-basic and a handful of different yield enhancing or stress mitigating products that are out there. So it was nice to go and learn a little bit about the different biologicals and the different things that go along with being basic in that world. So one of the main topics, or one of the last topics that we sat through, they had a professor from Auburn that his name was Dr. Steve Lee, and he has been doing a lot of work over the past 3 years in drone work. Lynn, why don't you highlight some of the things that you thought that was interesting from those drone work studies?
Yeah, so when we think about drones in the United States, Dylan, you were on the front end of it back as a college student, but really in comparison to China, we are in the infancy stages or advancing, but we are so far behind the game with China from a use standpoint. And some of that has to do with rules, I guess, and then obviously the manufacturing of drones and the changes that the FAA and the FCC has done with that. But I thought it was really interesting that how many drones are flying around China last year in comparison to what we have in the United States. Another big one that I thought was very interesting.
Which we're like a thimbleful to a 5-gallon bucket when
Correct.
It comes to flying drones and spraying fields in the agriculture.
And
if I remember correctly, it was like 156 million acres was done in China, and that would have like subsequent applications. Yep. And the United States was like 30 or 40 million. So we're about a third or a quarter of what they're doing.
Yeah, and we think about the opportunity in the United States, you just pure tillable acres. That's a pretty good margin that they have in comparison to what they have for tillable ground with the use. So I thought that opportunity was pretty interesting, which led into the second part that I thought was interesting is the innovation, particularly domestic innovation that's coming into the drone pipeline, looking at sizes of the drones. And then also I thought it was pretty cool that they are trying to figure out how to maximize the efficiency with these drones. Because as we think about these bigger drones, Dylan, you've been on the forefront of switching batteries and talking about making these things bigger. Well, it all becomes at a logistic cost of the battery power, massive generators that are needed to get to that point. So
Lynn, you remember what they said about if you're a drone operator, you will crash one?
Yep.
And so they said as you get to the larger and larger, more expensive ones, the risk of flying gets a little greater. But he said, the cheaper drones, you can afford to just crash one and throw it away,
Yep.
even though they're really still kind of expensive.
They're probably still $25,000 for the new?
No, yeah, they're north of that.
North of that?
Yep.
Oof.
So he kind of said, if you're going to fly a drone, fly a cheap one because you will crash it.
Yeah, and some of the new ones, 150 liters would be 21, 23 gallon sizes coming up. So the other logistic thing that was coming out of that too, I thought was really interesting, is as we look at particularly a herbicide fungicide, 2, 3, 4 gallon rates on drones. But as you get into the 4 gallon rate, obviously you're more fills, more battery changes. So trying to pair the use rate of herbicides and potentially moving forward, if there's work with these companies to have a quote unquote drone rate that uses 2 or 3 gallons versus the 5 gallon that might be with an airplane. I thought that was kind of interesting that they're thinking about that for the future.
For your label, and they're seeing some advantages to those low rates on certain products, aren't they?
Yeah, and especially as we're not just seeing it from Rosen's, other companies as well. We're getting surfactants and adjuvants that work in those applications where they're getting the maximum efficiency, I guess, out of the stickiness and of a lower use rate. Because that's, as we talk with Enlist, Liberty, we try to maximize our gallons to get as good a coverage, good pressure. On drones, you want kind of the bare minimum because, once again, there's a logistic cost to being out there operating. So that was pretty interesting. 4 different companies that kind of playing in the space that seem to be, what the quote unquote players. So there's good competition. So that means there's going to be good innovation. I was really surprised because we think about it around here. It's used, but not. We're a really good sub-selection of that demographic that he was talking about. Most guys with ground rigs are still going to use their ground rigs. Airplanes, helicopters are still really popular, but there's starting to be more of a focus related to that particular field, and we're going to find some efficiencies. And then the evolution of potentially self-flying, more UAV style, what I would call like Predator drone style looking air tractors, unmanned helicopters coming down the pipeline as well. So definitely some cool things that we'll see if it's 10, 15, 20 years down the road. Obviously government policy is going to dictate a lot of that, and we'll just have to kind of see. But the other one I thought was pretty cool was seeing the drones fly around in the pasture of the North Carolinas and all that, because I don't know, even on a 4-wheeler sprayer, if you'd want to be going up and down some of those hills trying to take care of some scrub brush. So the utility that we have in the United States, we think about specifically in the Midwest, is pretty narrow focused, and they're finding more utility. Solar, they're starting to use them to manage weeds in solar fields, actually using them to clean some of the solar panels they were talking about. Just a really, really broad range of application, and I think it's exciting, especially for guys that maybe are moving back to the farm and the roof isn't quite as big as what it needs to be. It could be a good opportunity for a beginning farmer to get in there and have an opportunity to make a little bit of a side income there. So a lot of hoops to jump through, right, Dylan?
There is, but like if these surfactants and adjuvants keep growing, hopefully faster than not, these guys can run just a 2-gallon rate, and we can make sure we're doing the same job as if we were doing a 4 or 5-gallon rate, or even 15 with the ground rig, because by the time you get your insurance, your paperwork, all your whole setup and everything into it, you're talking a lot of money. So those guys, they need to cover the acres to help pay for it, because the more hours and time you put on a drone, you have to constantly keep trading them off to keep the new technology with all that stuff advancing. As soon as a model, it seems like every 8 months right now, DJI has come up with a different drone, so there's constantly stuff changing on them. So guys need to get over the acres to help pay for them to do the best job too.
Yeah, so some of my anecdotal, I guess, complaints I've heard related to that is probably guys getting the swath width a little bit too wide to try to cover the acres, and hopefully these technologies do, because I saw 28.5 feet on a swath width on one particular one, and the spray model looked what's the paper called? Forgive me.
Yeah.
Wet paper.
Yeah. The coverage looked really good. So that's one of those in conjunction, lower gallons, better coverage, less managed, as you said with autonomous. They're talking about now the up, down, and around, seeing guide wires versus probably before. I think when you were out, you're still doing a little bit of flying on some of that stuff. So,
yep.
But we know sometimes too with autonomous they can have a mind of their own at times. So not foolproof, but definitely exciting to see that technology being promoted in a public space, and seeing the utility in different aspects than what we're, I guess, accustomed to seeing it in corn, wheat, and soybeans.
Looks like a lot of research is being done to maximize the efficiency, like Dylan was talking about, herbicides, surfactants, rates, and actually measuring, what is the best way to get it onto the plant, and the drone it appears that they're learning a lot. So.
Yeah, one of the things that I had for that portion of things, the product that Rosen's had was called Mach 5 that they use for their drones, and that's actually a guar and AMS based surfactant. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research into what the difference between guar based and typical poly style of adjuvant is, but they were seeing some big differences at a 2-gallon rate, adding this guar-based Mach 5 to get it to be as effective as a 15-gallon sprayer. So that's very interesting. The last note that I wrote on that session was that most of the time in perfect conditions, 2 gallon per acre does just as good as what any ground rig would do from a herbicide burn down standpoint. So what that means in good conditions is wind plays a heck of a role when it comes to the drone spraying, even more so than what you would see with a plane, much more than even like a ground rig. So I think that if we're going to see these drones used quite a bit, I think we're going to see a lot more nighttime flying, a lot more nighttime applications when the winds slow down and they can get their fungicides and potentially even herbicides someday at 2 gallon an acre covered. So
I think the lights will shine in the field when it goes down. You'll be able to find it easier.
I can tell you from experience, it's not fun going through a cornfield to go find your drone.
One of the other things that I found that was interesting is they kind of talk about something that Bilo talks about as well, is 60% of the stress comes from abiotic stress that a corn plant a corn, soybean, vegetable, whatever, has to deal with. It comes from abiotic stress. And what that means is lack of rainfall, too cold, too hot, too wet. All of these things are abiotic, so it's non-biology. And what are some of the things that we can do to reduce those abiotic stresses? And there are different biological components out there that are endophytic. There are different acids out there that turn genes on, like what we talk about in Heads Up and in Chernimco. So Rosen's is at the top of their game working with some of these different strategies in making corn and soybean plants through seed treatment, through foliar application, through 2x2, through in furrow, to turn different genes on in plants and continue to give that plant a head start when when it's coming to reducing stress. So lots of very interesting products that they were highlighting. One of the ones was this dicarbolic acid that is in a handful of their products. So that was really interesting to sit down and listen through to some of the things that they had go in that direction.
Plants are just like humans. Amino acids and carbohydrates are at the basic building block of making everything healthy. So it was definitely in the weeds conversation that I forget the doctor's name. Sorry, Alex, but very interesting. His top singular topic there related to plant stresses and how just manipulating one particular DCA has effect on mitigating all that stress.
Yep.
I think it was pretty cool too, the timing too as well. Like we've heard it with Brandt, heard it with Merschman, hearing it now with Rosen's. The one individual, Dr. Kruger, actually mentioned that 90% of biology, no matter where it comes from, works. It's just a matter of getting basically the 4 R's of biology. I thought it was very interesting on how they're getting the target window as broad as possible. Because we talk about a lot of these products, and there is a certain time and place related back to PGR conversation as well. Certain PGRs you don't want to use on certain timings, and having a broad window and being able to maximize co-applications with herbicides, fungicides, foliar. Definitely some interesting stuff going out there that I think helps alleviate some of the costs as we think about that. If it's making a trip across the field, you can justify that expense and that yield enhancement. And the one final thought that I have related to that, and I thought it was really interesting as they were talking about these discussions, is if it's worked, don't take it out of the budget. Leave it in the budget. You can, like right now, we've talked about it. If it's working, you can afford it. But if you take that out, can you afford not to use that practice and have those extra bushels? And that was a common theme related to these products, and I couldn't agree more with that sentiment.
It's like we talked about last week, was kind of reinforced by an article in Successful Farming, and said that basically these guys that are raising 200 bushel soybeans, 500 bushel corn, they're keeping that plant more stress-free, keeping that plant alive longer. And there's just, like, say, 1,000 variables that affect our crop every year. And I think with AI that's coming out, I think we're going to start understanding these interactions and then have a predictive models to be able to tell us when we need to have these products put on. And we'll just continue to push our yields higher and higher, because if we are losing 60% of our yield due to stresses, if we can manage those stresses, that means we could have huge increases. And that's where the guys that are raising the record yields that we scratch our head and can't understand how they could possibly do it, they're managing all these stresses.
100%. Dylan, that kind of leads into what you have in front of you there. What does the test plot look like for next year for West Point? What are some of the things that we're looking at?
Yeah, so we finally got our plot kind of figured out now that we have EXP corns and our new production corn. That side figured out, and also our new beans that are coming into the lineup for 27, 28. So we're gearing out ahead, but then on the corn side first, seems like we like to do, or it's worked out great the past 2 years. We do a population trial. So this year we're going to do 22,000, 34,000, and then 40,000. And then that way we can see the true flex and see how those plants adapt to different populations through there. And then on the bean side, that's really where we're going to focus this year, just because it's a little easier to get over top with our equipment, and a little 3-wheeled sprayer is going to come out of the old shed, and we're going to do some testing on beans. So we're going to run more meristem trials with the full program. So it'd be at the herbicide pass, our harvest shield complete, so the stress mitigator, the early PGR, and then we're going to come back at R3, so the normal fungicide application. The plan is right now with this generic quilt, and then NKBS late season. And another test, we're going to do that same system plus a extra fungicide application like 3 weeks later, hopefully, depending on weather and getting through that. So we'll hopefully see what we can gain by keeping that plant along longer. And we'll throw in NKBS in late season again in that pass to really push that along. We saw really good results in corn, so we're going to try to see if we can do that same thing on the bean side. We're going to do these same tests also, or at 140,000 and 80,000. So we're going to cut the population back to see where we can grow on that side of things. If we would cut back our population like guys are starting to do, and we've really seen a lot of good results out of it, where can we take that ceiling by lowering that population, get that plant to bush out, and really go from there. So that's the plan right now. Hopefully Mother Nature will allow all this to go through. So
yeah, hopefully we get the plot planted in April this year. It's
that's
going to be
the plan.
awesome.
Everything should be ready to rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep. No, I'm really curious to see what the 140 versus the 80 does, and the different levels of full management plus are going to do, because I have a sneaking suspicion that the 80,000 is going to out yield and out ROI the 140,000. And I think it has something to do with the genetics of the beans that we have now, and the ability for them to branch and hold on to pods in the branches. And we get to let that soybean actually express its genotypic and phenotypic wants and desires, rather than dealing with crowd stress of having too many plants out there. So that's my prediction. Our plot isn't perfectly uniform, so I'm hoping the combine tells me what I think it's going to tell me, but that's the direction, and that's the reason that you set that up the way that you did, I think.
Yeah, and looking back, if I can find the space, I want to maybe take the Madison, which we know is a very tall plant structure, and give it a lot of the PGRs to see how well I can, or see if I can shrink that overall height without giving up any yield, because I think that bean has a lot of potential. We know it can get tall, but if we can use these PGRs to help lower the plant height, I think it'd do really well without it screwing up yield in the end.
Yeah, and it is Peking too. So besides,
it's the latest Peking that I found.
Yeah,
that made sense to have in the lineup, but it's a tall bean. It stands really good for its height.
Yeah.
Marginal acre, we definitely need a little palisade on some of those beans, especially planted early. Last year, we experienced that with some really early planting date, great vegetative growing conditions. Toward the end of the season, we've talked about it before, but some of those beans would have actually done really well if they would have shorted that node spacing just a little bit and not had to require so much energy to get to that top fill of those pods. So fingers crossed. I hope you come up with something really, really good.
I'm going to try.
Farmer Lynn's intrigued.
Yeah. Some of the other things that you're going to see on that test plot form is we are introducing 2 new corn hybrids. I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about them, but we essentially have a phenomenal partner getting into the later maturities to our 2512C30 or 2413 or 2411. We have a 113-day. It follows the same naming mechanism. It's going to be a 2713C-30. It's one of the things that I really like about it. Phenomenal top-end yield performance, great disease package, and it was the only thing that was alive in Ankeny when they were hit with southern rust so hard when we were looking at it.
And they don't spray those plots for southern rust.
Yep. So very, very strong southern rust tolerance. I think that's going to allow this product to help us move into areas that have southern rust a little bit more frequently. But when you look at the ear style and what that plant looks like, it looks very similar to the 2512. Very, very nice ear that has good length to it, has good kernel depth to it, and it has the meat. It's got the kernels around as well. So it's going to build yield very similarly to the way the 2512 did. The other product is a 2714 C-30. This is going to be a good product that yields, but it's got a little bit more grit underneath it, and it's going to give us the ability to pull further south. So very excited about both of these 2 products. Great silage quality, strong green snap performance. So this is a product that's going to move into dryland Nebraska, irrigated Nebraska very well. So we're very excited about this product too. So I think the ears on this one is going to be a little bit more similar to the 2413. It's going to be a little bit shallower kernel. Once we get it through pollination, it's going to be a very, very stable product. So you guys are going to see these. The reason I bring these up, we're not selling these products yet, but we had to finalize production plans a couple weeks ago on them. But if you're interested in needing a plot, if you're a dealer of ours and you're not aware that we have a little bit of plot seed available for this, I'd like to get these 2 products out on as many plots as possible, because I think these 2 are going to be very similar to our core hybrids that we have in the lineup now, and they're just taking the next step. They're the next generation newer, they're more broadly fit, they're in a maturity range that is very attractive to a lot of our customers. So take a look at them, reach out to your local Merschman area sales manager, and hopefully we have some plot seed for you.
Yep. And they will be in production this summer, so they'll be able to plant them next spring.
That's correct. We're always planning. Years out.
That's right. Many years. I wanted to mention Farmcon, which is a big ag conference down in Kansas City, first part of January. Their videos of the entire conference are now posted on YouTube, so we're going to put that link out there. So if you want to pick and choose some of the best speakers in the country, talking about very timely topics that are affecting agriculture right now, you can get the advantage of watching these videos and pick and choose where their interest may lie. So check out the Farmcon YouTube videos link that we put, and hopefully next year you can make it in person. You're probably wondering why I brought my friend here today, okay? And we just have so much fun with our friend. And those of you that are not frequent watchers of the Cup of Joe podcast here, well, a long time ago, I had a local person, I don't even know who it is anymore, but they always said when you see your first dead skunk in the middle of the road, you'll be planting corn within 6 weeks, maybe a couple weeks later, but somewhere within around 6 weeks is what was I always told. And they said it has to do with the males looking for females. It's breeding season. And so consequently, they are moving around, crossing roads, and some of them don't look both ways and they get ran over. So, and it's always been kind of we all kind of smile, but there might be a little bit of truth to it, even though that we don't necessarily maybe put 100% of our belief in it. But they always say the skunk knows. The skunk knows when the weather's going to be nice to have their young. They don't want to have it in the middle of a blizzard. They want to have it when it's a little bit warmer. So I get calls or texts all the time, saw a dead skunk, saw a dead skunk. So there is a lot of people that are watching for the dead skunks, and a lot of people that at least puts a smile on their face. That means planting's close. So we even have some of the girls in the office, okay, hey Joe, saw a dead skunk south of town here today this morning when I drove in. So this is one of the leading indicators of when you'll be planting in your fields is the dead skunk. So watch for it. So have some fun with it and write it down and see if it comes true. But it looks like to me we could be planting in the first part of April or mid-April for sure because the skunks know. The skunks know. So since we don't have anything else to add, one of my classmates from high school, we have a group text or text that we send out, email I should say, and I thought it was kind of funny, because I graduated from high school in '73, and he wrote to the whole group, because we grew up in the '70s. The '70s seemed like a lot more fun than being in the '70s, and they're talking about our age now. So I thought that was an interesting quote, and those of you in your '70s will definitely relate to it. Okay, but anyhow, let's go to the jokes. And again, if anybody wants to know why we do the jokes, it's because there's a seed company back in the 1930s that theoretically invented the corny joke, and so therefore we carry on the tradition. Why did they invent the corny joke? Is because they would put a written flyer out with all their different seed products on. Back then it was mainly vegetable seeds, and they put a corny joke on each page, hoping the potential customer would turn the page, look at their seeds, and because they were looking for the corny joke. So we're doing the same thing. We hope that you watched the entire episode and you're now down to the corny jokes, and that's what makes it all worthwhile. Most of the cases, that's not the truth. And some of them are pretty bad. But anyhow, here's one I collected this week. What do you get when you cross an angry sheep with an angry cow? Two animals in a bad mood. That's bad. Anyhow, what did the religious skunk say? What did the religious skunk say? Let us spray. Let us spray. I'll give you one more then before you kick me out of here. Roses are red, violets are blue. If skunks had a college, they'd call it PU. Well, I didn't say they were great, but anyhow, we hope you didn't shut off before you got to the last one. But anyhow, we do appreciate your business. We know that planting is going to be here very quickly. Glad to see the markets moving up a little bit of optimism. That's all positive. We had a little bit of warm weather, back to cold weather. Now, hopefully go back to warm weather. But anyhow, hope your family's safe and healthy, and we'll see you next week.